One of the biggest sporting events in the world is the FIFA World Cup. Because even though many countries don't participate in it, the tournament is still welcomed and followed all around the world. So who created the World Cup? It was created by the International Federation of Association Football, better known as FIFA. Creating a competition like the World Cup brought a massive flow of money into FIFA. And usually, wherever there is a huge amount of money, corruption tends to appear alongside it. On December 2nd, 2010, FIFA held a meeting in Switzerland to choose the hosts for the 2018 and 2022 World Cups. People like Bill Clinton, Prince William, and officials from different countries around the world criticized FIFA, saying that the organization had gained far too much power. For the 2022 World Cup, Qatar was one of the countries in the race. After that decision, many governments around the world started questioning FIFA and claimed that the organization had definitely received illegal payments behind the scenes. In the early 20th century, football was the #1 sport in Europe and South America. And since 1904, countries from these two regions had been playing against each other. To organize these matches, they founded FIFA in France in 1904. They looked at the Olympic Games and saw how successful and profitable they were. They thought football could have its own version of the Olympics, and in 1930 they launched the first ever World Cup. The first question was, which country should host the very first World Cup? 6 countries told FIFA, "Choose us, we are ready." Those countries were Sweden, the Netherlands, Hungary, Italy, Spain, Uruguay. At that time, FIFA had 44 members. Each member had 1 vote, and those 44 countries were supposed to decide which candidate would become the host. Today, many people believe that even the first World Cup host was chosen through money and influence, making those 44 votes almost meaningless. Because in the end, FIFA was the organization announcing the winner. The voting was done secretly, and FIFA had the final say in revealing who had won. What's interesting is that Uruguay was chosen as the first World Cup host, and that same year they also became world champions. Recently uncovered documents suggest that FIFA made a deal with Uruguay in 1928. The agreement was reportedly, you must cover all World Cup expenses, pay for hotels, cover the team's costs, and also give FIFA 30% of the money generated from advertising. According to this arrangement, Uruguay didn't really gain much from hosting the tournament, while FIFA was the one making the profit. In 1934, Benito Mussolini, the fascist leader of Italy, made a deal with FIFA and wanted the World Cup to be held in Italy. FIFA's message was basically, everything has a price. If you pay for it, then yes, we are ready to cooperate. That is why the 1934 World Cup was held in Italy. And the same thing continued with other countries. To put it simply, any country that wanted to host the World Cup had to open its wallet. Otherwise, it had little chance of winning the bid. These claims are not something we are making up ourselves. Almost everything up until the era of Sepp Blatter has been exposed through investigations and reports. After that period, of course, no major scandals were publicly revealed. Until the 1970s, the World Cup was considered a relatively ordinary event, and most of its coverage was broadcast through radio. But after the 1970s, when television became widespread, the World Cup became dozens of times more famous. And the main reason was television. That meant FIFA became dozens of times richer, and the value of hosting the tournament increased dramatically. Because every country that had enough resources wanted to become the host. And television advertising became even more profitable than hosting itself, with a large portion of that money going into FIFA's accounts. During the 1970s, FIFA's membership grew from 44 countries to 177 countries. Day by day, FIFA became more powerful until we reached 1986. That year, FIFA's income increased several times over. Why? Because sponsors entered the game, and enormous amounts of advertising money started flowing into FIFA. Huge amounts of money were coming into the organization, but control over all that money was in the hands of only 24 people, FIFA's main decision makers. Important decisions, including choosing World Cup hosts, were made by these 24 individuals. Yes, FIFA had many members, but the votes of the others were not truly influential. These 24 people were known as the Executive Committee, or EXCO. The major decisions were made by the EXCO. When 13 out of those 24 members voted in favor of something, the decision was already approved. In other words, the control of one of the most important sports in the world ended up in the hands of a group of people whose qualifications and integrity were questioned. FIFA was founded in France, but its headquarters were moved to Switzerland. Why? Because Switzerland had banks. banks that had become famous for handling some of the world's largest money laundering operations, and FIFA benefited from having access to that financial environment. However, serious corruption inside FIFA really began becoming visible around the year 2000. It happened when Germany was selected to host the 2006 World Cup. At the same time, the German magazine Der Spiegel revealed that 4 members of FIFA's executive committee, the people responsible for the final decision, had allegedly received secret payments from Germany in exchange for supporting its bid. This was the first time that a major and respected media organization openly accused FIFA of corruption, even though the media outlet itself was from Germany. The story of South Africa hosting the 2010 World Cup followed a similar pattern. The investigation was revealed by Quartz, which reported that millions of dollars in illegal payments had allegedly been made. For the 2018 World Cup, Russian oligarchs reportedly provided financial support and wanted to use the event to strengthen Russia's position internationally. Think about it. FIFA had basically turned into a marketplace. Anyone who came with enough money could get what they wanted. The Russian government had also promised to spend $10 billion on the tournament to make sure it was organized at the highest level and that FIFA would look successful. It was the most expensive World Cup preparation budget at that time. So FIFA looked at Russia and said, "You are the host." Qatar was also interested in hosting the World Cup because it was an extremely wealthy country. But many people initially told Qatar, no way. First, because its national team had never qualified for the World Cup. Second, because the country was very small. Third, because the weather was extremely hot, and at that time, Qatar only had 1 stadium. But everyone knew that Qatar was an incredibly rich country. It had a small population, a small territory, relatively low public expenses, and enormous income from oil and natural gas. Qatar basically told FIFA, "Didn't Russia promise to spend $10 billion on the World Cup? If you give me the hosting rights, I will spend $200 billion on this project and build 12 new stadiums." This $200 billion was separate from any money that may have been involved in securing the hosting rights, because the exact amount of those payments is unknown. One FIFA official, who was part of the executive committee, Jack Warner, announced after retiring, "I received $2 million from Qatar." He may have received even more, but nobody knows the full amount. People who have studied FIFA's operations say that FIFA found it easier to work with authoritarian governments because there was less chance that scandals would become public. But the opposite happened. Russia and Qatar ended up exposing FIFA's problems because people around the world had already become suspicious of the organization. In a way, thousands of independent investigators were looking into the issue. By independent investigators, we mean ordinary people who followed the story online, investigated the details, and eventually helped reveal FIFA's actions. It is interesting to know that in 2018, the United States also wanted to host the World Cup. But FIFA did not choose the United States because, according to critics, they believed there was less financial benefit compared to other options, and they awarded the tournament to Russia instead. On the other hand, when FIFA rejected the United States and then selected Russia and Qatar one after another, many Americans became frustrated. That is why the FBI also began investigating the case. They suspected that some kind of deal had taken place behind the scenes. And they were right, because several FIFA officials were eventually arrested. Even though the FBI became involved and media outlets around the world reported on FIFA's corruption, nothing major happened afterward. A few people were arrested, but Sepp Blatter, who was FIFA's president at the time, simply retired and left. If you search online and look at his estimated wealth, many sources claim he has around $40 million. Of course, that does not include any money that may be unknown to the public. Maybe the 2026 World Cup, which was awarded to the United States, Canada, and Mexico, was also a way to calm down the FBI and the United States. What do you think? Write your opinion in the comments. And since you've made it this far, do us a favor. Hit the like and subscribe buttons to support the CTV